Fine. Haguka smart. He figure it all out. And face will heal, as has before. Follow me, Queen Duchess. Open up. See this boba must take to Haruka. Is that his lunch? Food! King of all boba. That was awesome. All right, well, time to parlay. Okay. A howling crowd of trolls waits by the entrance of an ancient dwarven fortress. They growl, pound the stone floor with their fists and clubs, and spit curses at Zara and her party. Each sound is magnified, hammering the walls like a drum. Despite this display, however, the trolls do not attack, as if awaiting a command or permission. Zara holds a hand up again to her party, looking around at each of them quickly. Hold your weapons, she says in a low voice. We are here to parley, not to fight. Harem, who was already whipping it out, and Ekundayo, who has his bow ready to pull. Zara says, Ekundayo, lower your bow now. Ekundayo grimaces, his muscles in his face. And then he lowers his bow. His fingers are shaking, his bow is shaking. There will be a time for vengeance, my friend, but first, let me at least find out what's going on before we turn this into a bloodbath. Ekundayo gives once again one crisp nod and backs down. A troll stands at ease beside the base of a huge fractured Torag statue. He's not the biggest or scariest among the trolls, but there's an odd supremacy in his moves and in his eyes. Supremacy over both Ken and over Zara and her party. The brand mark on his pelt is almost worn off. It pulses weakly in unison with his heartbeat.
Why brought Borba? What your orders? Get out my sight, since you already here. Welcome to Castle of Hargoka, King of Trolls. What you hope to find here, besides death, Borba?
Saying these words, he punches Jazan in the face. Blood spatters against the stone walls and floor. Jazan whimpers and runs away. Blood dripping from the hand he's pressed to his torn face. The troll leader turns to you, to Zara. The glares of the other trolls drill into Zara, silent and hateful.
No good comes of talking with monsters. We came for their heads, not their words.
Zara looks over her shoulder at Ekundayo and says again, hold. All right. Zara says, attempting to, she does not bow, but she walks very, very slowly. forward until she stands about here. She looks him not in the eyes, knowing how this can seem a defiance and anger him. She looks at a point around his chin. She endeavors to show no fear. Having at times in her life as a druid and a Fae sister when walking the lands, been stared down by boars, by other wild creatures. And so her step is light. Her gait is slow and measured. Her eyes are careful, looking him not in the face to anger him. She lowers her shoulders and then says, "By your finery, may I assume that I speak to Haguka?"
You guess yourself? Or you have help? No, not yourself. King Haguka gave you a hint. Smart, Borba. So smart.
Okay, I freaking love this voice actor. Oh my god, oh my god. Man. Oh, I like him. Well done. Zara, hearing his words of how smart she is, nods her head as if he has offered her a grand and gracious compliment in a beautiful throne room or ballroom, instead of in this filthy, stinky ruin of a dwarven ruin. And she behaves as if they are in the highest of courts. And she says, "Thank you. That's very kind of you to say."
Tartuk, the Kobold King, made trolls immortal, taught us to talk with Borba. Now trolls are smarter than Borba, stronger than Borba, better than Borba. What you say, Borba? What you say now, when trolls are better than you?
He takes 2 steps forward, looming over Zara. Now, just so you know, I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but Zara is about 5'6" or so. This troll is, what, 8 feet tall? So, you know, he just hovers over her, breathing out of his mouth, the occasional drop from his mouth falling on the floor. Zara continues to stand tall, but she hears the very quiet pad of Bracken and Tema walking up behind her. They seem very calm. They do not have their hackles raised. They are not baring their teeth. Tema walks up to Zara's left side and sits down and begins to casually wash her paw with a raspy tongue. Bracken walks up to Zara's right side, stands next to her, his head leaning onto her leg, as he so often does. Without even thinking about it, Zara's head slowly begins to stroke her wonderful friend, her constant companion's head. Zara says, looking again at his chest, because she cannot pull her head far enough back to look up at his face. She looks at his chest near his throat and says, "You are the king of trolls. I am the queen of humans. Let us make peace as rulers. True, smart rulers do. Your people won't go near our villages, and in turn, we will leave you be." Let us parley. What say you? I come in peace. Our weapons are not drawn. Look at my party. It is obvious we are emissaries. How seriously could you be taken as a king if you cannot even parley with the first emissary who crosses your doorstep?
King Tartuk wants to make deals with Borba. King Tartuk teaches us not to eat Borba. Argoka disagrees. Borba sly. Borba not respect trolls. Want to fool trolls. Make trolls weak. Trolls will not be Borba's dogs. Argoka will conquer you. Destroy your homes. Then Argoka and Tartuk will start to make deals with you.
Zara does not respond. Silent.
Do not leave this place. Borba should not have come. Argoka needs to prepare, though. Find Argoka later, if you can, stranger. Der Borba, der Garbanzard!
Argoka turns and pounds the Torag statue with his fist. And then, before Zara can say one word, he leaps into the side hallway, and Ekundayo raises his bow, immediately shooting an arrow after him, which bangs into the wall and just misses the fleeing troll. And it's on, boys! It is on! Bring it! Ekundayo is not having it at all. So, unfortunately, we are not buffed at all, but that's okay, because I want to save that for the boss fight, which is inevitably coming. We're going to open up a can of whoop your butt. All right, so, Jubilost, I'm going to have you, I'm going to take you off of the fire now. And how long does this last? 10 minutes per level is pretty darn good, but I think we can do without it. With just 2 trolls, I think we can handle this. The trick is where we're settled here. So let's just have you go for this guy. All right. And then Valerie is going to charge this guy and cause him a bad day. Bracken, let's get in here. And you go for this one here. Yes, and there's that all-important trip. And then we'll have Tema and Potema. Why don't you charge this guy here? Tema, are you blocked? Oh, crap. That sucks. Can you move, Tema? Can you move? Okay, good. There we go. And then Harem, you charge here. There we go. So now we have our frontliners taking care of these trolls. And then it is the troll's turn. He's back up again and has a miss. Lindsay is going to sing her little heart out, as she usually does. Singing with an extra... Harem can't help but notice, even in the stress of the situation, that Lindsay is singing with an extra gusto in her voice, as if she's very glad to be alive today. Ekundayo is just shouting, "You cannot bring them back! All the villagers are dead!" Actually, okay, and this troll is now down. So that means at Jubilost, it's time to throw some acid his way. Let's do that and take him out. And dead he goes. And Ekundayo is like, "My village! My village!" And he just keeps repeating the same thing over and over and over. And then I'm going to have her move in, as she is a melee combatant. And then, Bracken. Let's charge him, if we can. Yeah. And down he goes, and he is... Ooh, a critical hit of 30! Woo! But we'll just spend that on that. And there she goes. And we are now chasing Harguka, much to Ekundayo's joy. Let's see what else is in here. As the party walks by Torag's statue, Harem walks over. He looks like he wants to spit at its feet. Harem says, "You're weak, Torag. Weak and pathetic. How could you, the god of all dwarves, the great creator, be knocked down by some meager troll?" Ekundayo says, "You've confused the god with the sculpture depicting him." Ekun notes calmly. Harem doesn't hear him, or just doesn't care. Ekundayo follows the ways of Torag, and Harem does not, feeling that Torag has betrayed him. Valerie says, "Harem, gods are not pathetic. Those who grovel at their feet and beg for charity, then cry when they receive no crumbs from the divine table, on the other hand." Zara gives a look at Valerie, realizing that as much as she respects Valerie's honor and her prowess in battle, she doesn't like her much and finds her placid privilege to be offensive. Harem says, also, ignoring everyone and continuing to lay his anger at Torag's feet. "Also, how can the dwarves put their trust in you, you traitor god? How can you protect your people if you're so incapable of defending them even yourself?" Lindsay, feeling that Harem has helped her a lot in the last few days, walks over to Harem and tries to hold his hand. He doesn't even notice, so she just holds on to his hand, trying to support her friend. Zara turns to Harem and she looks at him very clearly, very calmly, and she says, "Harem, you confuse the reason with the consequence. Torag's worshippers left this place. Their faith doesn't empower Torag anymore, so he has no need to protect this fortress. Do you not understand, my friend? Your anger is futile, and I worry about you. It will eat away at your heart, your soul." Harem opens his mouth to object, but apparently can't find any good arguments. Finally, with a shrug, he gives up on Zara. You're so blind, Zara Face, sister," he says, just to fill the silence, and turns away. Zara stands there looking at her friend's back, her companion's back. And Valerie takes this time to step up. "It was just an old statue. What has Torag to do with it, anyway, Harem?" "You're wrong, Valerie. It's not just any statue. It's a symbol," he says. "Faith feeds the gods, just like food nourishes our mortal bodies, and the symbols of faith are the channels through which gods communicate with the faithful." He grimly looks at the pedestal where the statue used to stand, but only the stone of Torag's feet remains now. "The symbol is destroyed, so Torag is weak, Valerie. Don't you see? If he could protect this place, he wouldn't allow such desolation to happen." Ekundayo says, "No sense in over-persuading," he says, looking at Harem. Valerie continues, though. It's almost like she wants to raise Harem's hackles, like her disdain for his upset. She can't even take that in. Zara is trying to ignore all of this, but her anger and upset grows with Valerie with every word she asks. Valerie says, "But the statue was ancient. It was easy to break. Don't try to see hidden signs where there aren't any, Harem." Harem stomps his foot. He bangs his battle hammer on a piece of fallen rock. He says, "You're blind! How could this statue possibly be destroyed? If Torag was protecting this place, how could dwarves perish here if Torag cared about them?" Harem presses his lips together. "No, Valerie, this whole place is an anthem for Oblivion's victory over weakness. The victory Grotus won over Torag." Valerie says, "If you insist, and if you must keep your whining, then do it. But let us go now. We need to find the Troll King, and it is not safe to stand here and discuss it." The dwarf turns away from Valerie, and he stops behind her, staring at the floor. Oh, and by the way, let's take a look at our Harem's character screen. Servant of a dark god. Abandon hope and embrace the inevitable end. That's the kind of speech that Harem's companions must endure every single day. He is a priest of Grotus. As a priest of Grotus, Harem left his dwarven home to spread the word of the god of end times through the stolen lands. Although if you ask me, says Lindsay, Harem's just a whiner, but he's one of a kind. So, since we didn't get a chance to really get to know Harem back at base, which is I'm remiss in doing that, we'll get to know him after this mission. We'll talk to him and we'll talk to Ekundayo to find out more about where they came from. And we'll do that before we do each character's has a personal quest that we're going to be doing. And we're doing Harem's right now, as well as doing Harem's quest is weaved in with the quest of tracking Tartuk and Harguka and all of that. Yeah, it looks like we might be in kind of a big dungeon here, so before we go any further, Ekundayo is going to stop Zara and say, he puts a hand on Zara's shoulder, tiptoeing up behind her and puts a hand on her shoulder. "Wait, friend." Ekun stops Zara. "Kargad is near. Can feel it. On the ground. On the grass. On those rocks. Everything is soaked with his stench. Must tell you about him. You need to be prepared. This fight is not easy." "What would you want me to know? We are all listening. If there's some way that you know of to defeat this enemy, please, Ekundayo, let us know." Ekun exhales loudly, gathering his thoughts. "Rock trolls have more strength, brutality than the regular ones. Kargad is the strongest. We fought. He crushed buildings with fists. He caught people up, tore them apart." He lowers his head, taking a moment, remembering the carnage. Pain ripples across his face. "During our fight, he just swept my body aside, like he would sweep aside a horsefly, annoyed, but not harmed by bite. Do not be fooled by his clumsiness. He can be very fast. It is carved in my memory, flying through the air towards a fence. While he's talking, Tema walks over next to him. She sits down, tries to calm him. Flying through the air towards a fence. A hit in the head, doubled vision in the eyes, inability to stand up, inability to raise a bow, taste of blood in the mouth, helpless. Ekun looks somewhere ahead. His gaze is still and heavy. His face looks like a mask carved in stone, the same rock as the troll he tells you about. You said the troll, I believe you called him Kargad. How did you... It was he who killed your family. Ekun's face twists in a painful grimace. Should you know the details? Zara says, it is not that I should know, Ekun. It is that it will eat you inside if you do not let it out. Speak the pain. Let it out. He sighs, and then holding his bow tight, his fingers so tight, he swept my defenses out of the way and crushed the wall of our house. He seized my wife. Amanda was her name. And he bit off her head. He hurled her body aside. Clarissa screamed and he just stomped on her. And he crumples. Right there, on the ground. Tema howls quietly. And then suddenly Ekundayo is crying. Crying, tears falling from his face onto Tema's fur as he wraps his arms around her and rocks her. Oh, 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 oh. And he cries, weeps for his loved ones, weeps for his wife Amanda, weeps for his beautiful daughter Clarissa, who looked so much like him in her eyes. Her face was a wonderful, deep brown. Her hair, she always braided it up in pretty braids and then said, "Look, Daddy, look at my braids." And he would say, "How pretty you are, little one." Zara sees the pain and knows she does not touch him. The whole party stands, Harem keeping watch over one shoulder and Valerie keeping watch behind them. And they allow their new companion, to do what he needs to do, and that is grieve. After a short period of time, shorter than Zara thinks is wise, but one does their grieving in their own way. Ekundayo stands. He takes a tattered cloth from his belt. He wipes his entire face. He is not ashamed of having cried. He is not ashamed of having let it out. The only shame he has is that he could do nothing to stop their deaths. And he will live with that shame for the remainder of his days. After the tears, his eyes hold a softness that Zara has not seen in the days that they have traveled together. And Zara's heart goes out to him. She notices that he is now holding on to Tema, stroking her head in the same absent-minded way that she does. Though it is obviously hard for him to tell the story, Zara is grateful to see that there is some relief in Ekun's voice and in his eyes. His voice becomes less clipped, softer. I am grateful you made me tell this, that you asked me to do so. You are right. Needed that. Valerie says, the atrocities committed by this monster are horrific indeed. We will deliver justice. But Zara wishes that Valerie had a kinder heart, and that she was not always so focused on justice and doing right, but by being kinder to her fellow men. She makes no move to touch or comfort Ekundayo in any way. Harem says, looking down at the ground, still broken from what, still, I wouldn't say broken, but just cracked inside from his anger at Torag. And he says, I envy them so much. Their agony is over, but ours lingers still. Zara says to Ekundayo, she says, Ekundayo, could he speak like these other trolls? Did he have some intelligence? You know his name. How? Ekundayo says, the trolls. They shouted it as a war cry. He scratches behind Tema's ear. As an anthem. I can hear it at night when I try to sleep. Kagad, Kagad, Kagad. They were yelling it when he crushed the walls of our house, when he, and he cannot finish the words. So, he killed your family so easily. Why did he leave you alive? Though, I can tell you, Ekundayo, that he will be very sorry that he did. Ekundayo smiles, a kind of grim smile. And then he shrugs and says, he was in a haste. The night was ending. In the light of dawn, rock trolls turned to rock they originated from. Sunlight is his worst enemy. Kagad knows that. Zara says, thank you. Zara turns to him and says, turns away and then turns back suddenly and says, Ekundayo, there is no such thing as luck. There is only blessing. You are alive. Bless the honor of your wife and child. Do you understand? Ekundayo raises his eyes, looks Zara directly in the eyes, and says, for the remainder of my days. My life will be filled with blessing them and the pain that will cause. And one more tear slowly trickles down his cheek. He does not brush it away. Lindsay is also crying. Silently, tears running down her face. She is completely silent, a rarity for Lindsay. Her eyes are soft and warm, and she feels such pain for Ekundayo. She endeavors to get to know him. He never comes into the tavern. Well, he hasn't been back to the village, but she imagines that he is not a tavern goer. But she wants to find a way to get to know this man. For she senses that under all of that gruff speech, those short clipped words, is a strong beating heart, made stronger by the grief he has endured. After another moment of silence, Zara says, "We have battle before us, so let us sum up. What do we know about this Kagad?" Ekundayo says, talking to the whole party now, "Business as usual. Kagad is a rock troll. Thus he has greater size and strength than regular trolls. Fire and acid are not deadly to him." He nods at Jubilos, and Jubilos nods back, noting that. "But they can still hurt him. His weakness is sunlight. He has no desire to turn to stone. The dungeon gives him strength. The rock itself heals his wounds. The battle will be held inside his home." Zara says, "Then what do we have?" And then Zara notices that some light here on the floor. She looks up at the ceiling. She sees that it is night, and she says, "What we need is to bring him just below. We may have to fight him throughout the entire night. Inside here, I cannot tell where the moon lies in the sky, but I would say the time it took for us to come up, have the talk, it would be maybe the third bell? So, we need to keep him alive, but weaken him. We have 3 hours to do so. Are you all prepared?" Everyone nods. Lindsay wipes her eyes. She tightens her mouth. She looks like she could just roll into this rock troll and chew him apart with her very little teeth. Zara says, "Ready your weapons. We will do our magic here. We will need every bit that we can find. We cannot leave the space. We are surrounded by trolls on all ends. So we cannot nap here. We cannot sleep here. We have to survive. Do you all understand? Do you all understand?" And then before she turns away, she says, "Thank you for telling me your story. For telling us your story. For trusting us. We will all hold it dear." And she looks pointedly at Valerie. Valerie tries to hold her face up, her chin up, but cannot, and soon drops it and looks at the floor. "I guess we will be able to defeat Kagad, because we have no other choice. We will find a way." Ika nods. He looks at Timma, and then he also looks at Bracken, and then he says, Timma, you lead us to battle." "Yes? Bracken, you lead us to battle. And I thank you all for coming with me, for I know I could not have defeated him myself, though I would have died trying. Thank you. And to each companion, he salutes or acknowledges them. This monster must not survive. Indeed, it is time to hit that blasted blighter right in his ugly maw. We've learned where Kargag is, and now let's help Ekundayo have his revenge. And in the next episode, we will kill Kargad or die. For those of you guys watching in live right now, please hang out with me. But for those of you guys watching later on YouTube, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. This has been Pathfinder Kingmaker, the Enhanced Edition. In the next episode, battle ensues. And I can't wait. And I hope you can either. And as always, thank you so much for watching.